All right. Good morning, folks. Welcome to the PT on Ice Daily Show. We are live on Instagram. We're live on YouTube. Welcome, podcast listeners, as well. My name is Dustin Jones. Today is Wednesday, where we talk about all things older adults. And today we're going to be talking about unleashing the beast, how we can help our patients discover their inner badass, why that's important, why we may want to think about this, and then ways that we can go about this in the context of rehab and fitness. Awesome. Good to see folks rolling in here. Want to give you a couple announcements related to MMOA or modern management of the older adult. We've got some packed courses coming up this weekend, May 14th and 15th. If you're around Los Angeles, California, or Austin, Texas, we're going to be doing our thing there. There's a few seats left for Los Angeles and a few seats left for Austin as well. Then we're going to be in Kingman, Arizona, June 11th, the weekend of June 11th. Out in Kingman, Arizona, kind of between Las Vegas and Phoenix there. So I'd love to see some of y'all. Our online courses, Essential Foundations, Advanced Concepts, are rocking right now. We're not running another Essential Foundations cohort until August 17th. So you can check that out as well. Awesome. All right. Unleash the beast. Let's talk about this. This is a topic that has come kind of front and center for me in many interactions that I have with folks currently in the context of fitness at Stronger Life, but then also a trend that I saw in the context of home health as well. And many of y'all will be able to relate to this. And the trend that I'm seeing with a lot of the folks that I work with, mainly older adults, is that their perception of themselves does not match reality. Their perceptions don't match reality. And we see this a lot, right? And especially for many of you all in outpatient, regardless of setting, you're going to see some mismatch between how people perceive themselves and what they're capable of doing and the reality of the situation and their capacities. I think a lot of times in outpatient, we kind of see the trend of people may perceive that they are more capable of doing things than what they actually are, right? They kind of overshoot the mark. They think they can handle, that pickup game of basketball on the weekend or that marathon that they didn't train for or whatever activity it is that they think, oh, I can handle that. That's not a big deal. And then they may end up getting hurt where they may overreach the capacity of their tissues of their body, right? We kind of see that a lot, not a good bit in outpatient, right? But in my world, mainly working with older adults, I see the exact opposite, where people perceive that they are not able to do X, Y, and Z. Their perception of themselves is far lower than what they're actually able to do. Their perceptions don't match reality. And that has been the trend in the context of PT, in the context of home health, and in the context of fitness as well. People are capable of much more than what they think and what they perceive. And one of the main goals that I have with almost everyone that I work with is I want to align those perceptions with reality. And a lot of times I'm trying to get them to perceive themselves as more of a badass, to try and unleash their inner badass or unleash the beast, if you will. Now, why is that important? Why would we want to do that? And as particularly if we're talking about older adults, this is very important because how they perceive themselves, how they perceive or what they perceive in terms of their capacities, what they can do, what they can't do, influences so many decisions. What activity they may take up or what activity they may stop based on their perceptions, what they may do, what they may not do. Picking up a fitness program, an exercise program that you may recommend as a physical therapist or rehab clinician. How they perceive themselves will greatly influence their decisions that ultimately influence their activity levels, that ultimately influence their quality of life, their independence, and so on and so forth. Things that we actually care a lot about. A lot of that can be taken back to how they perceive themselves. And that's really important. So we want to be aware of this. We want to think about this with our folks and then ultimately be able to align those perceptions with the reality so they make these good decisions that ultimately are going to influence really good health outcomes. So for many of our individuals, our goal is to unleash the beast, help them discover their inner badass. And I think the reality of the situation is that many of us are seeing individuals in the context of a somewhat controlled environment in a way, right? Like, let's say you're in a PT clinic, you're seeing this individual in a very safe environment. You're monitoring them, you're able to see how they're doing particular things. You can see how they're responding in terms of their vital signs. it's a nice, controlled, safe environment. And the reality is if we can go hard in that situation, when they leave those four doors or walk through that door, they're going to be a whole lot better off as a result. The harder we go in the clinic, the easier their life is going to become. And we have a very unique opportunity to push them, to help them discover their limits, what they're actually capable of doing, so their life gets easier. Because the harder they go with you, the easier it'll be when they go to that grocery store, or to go and try to keep up with their grandkid out on the playground, or carry their laundry up and down those 2 flights of steps without getting winded. So we have this opportunity. We don't want to waste it. We need to take that opportunity, push them hard, help them discover their limits, and ultimately life is going to get a little bit easier for them when they leave our care. It's really important. We want to think about this. So unleashing the beast, 3 steps. I want to talk through this, give some examples, and I love your all's thoughts as well. Whether you're watching on Instagram, YouTube, drop a comment, because I think this is an important conversation, things that we're all confronting on a daily basis. But I'd love to hear how you handle this as well. So the first thing that I think about when we're trying to unleash the beast or help folks discover their inner badass is we need to meet them where they're at. Right? We need to meet them where they're at. We need to match our intervention and what we're doing to how they may perceive themselves in that moment. And a lot of times, like I mentioned, their perception of themselves is a little bit lower in terms of capacity than what they're actually able to do. Let's say you're introducing a deadlift, right? Someone walks in the door, an independent community dwelling older adult, gets out of their car, manages a curb. They're carrying already a 25-pound purse, right? You know that person can handle 25-pound deadlift without any issues whatsoever. However, that person may perceive that 25-pound dumbbell or kettlebell that you're going to pick up and put in front of them would make their spine, instantaneously combust and fracture, right? They may not perceive that they can do that. And so if you go in, start at that 25-pound deadlift, that may not be a great situation, right? They don't perceive that they can do that. So meeting them where they're at, what that looks like a lot of times in practice is intentionally underdosing individuals. You'll hear us talk a lot about this in the MMOA division, because we talk a lot about elevating our intensity of our activities, of really dialing in our exercise prescription, using functional activities that are going to translate to their ADLs and the things that they need to do. But when we look at actually executing that, we don't start there. We're often starting with intentional underdosage because their perceptions are not matching reality. So we may start off with some ankle pumps. I just puked in my mouth saying that, but that may happen. Or long arc quads, or the adductor ball squeeze, whatever, right? Whatever they perceive is going to be safe and helpful. We may start there because we're trying to build their trust, that therapeutic alliance. We're meeting them where they're at. That's where we start, but we don't stop there. All right, number 2, we maintain autonomy throughout this whole journey. We want them to maintain the ability to make decisions for themselves. We want to put them in the driver's seat of this process, and we're right there in the passenger seat. So what this looks like is a lot of dialogue, a lot of conversation when we're talking about progressing activities. Lindsay Huey, good morning. We give them choices. We give them decisions. We give them choices of things that we know are going to be beneficial, and they ultimately make that decision. This is very helpful when we're talking about the progression of an exercise. So let's say you know someone can do a 10-pound jump in the deadlift, for example, right? You know they can do that. They may not perceive that. So you may say, all right, why don't we just add maybe 2.5s or 5s? What do you think? Which one? 2.5s or 5s? Give them that decision. They make the choice. They're bought in. They maintain some of that autonomy and decision-making ability. And then we progress from there. Yeah, it's not as big of a jump as you know what they can do. And you probably want to save a little bit of time. But that autonomy is huge. And they begin to buy into that process and feel a part of it. And ultimately, if they're able to maintain their autonomy, they're going to build their self-efficacy and their confidence in doing these things, that they're going to get benefits from them. And we know self-efficacy is a hallmark of lots of positive health outcomes and something that we really want to encourage. So giving them choices. Be careful with your choices, though. You want to make sure those choices are ultimately going to end up going in a direction that you want to go. but that can be very powerful. So number one, we meet them where they're at. It may look like intentional underdosage. Number two, we're going to maintain autonomy. They're going to make some decisions. We want them to do that. We want to give them options that are ultimately going to lead them to the path of progress, right? And then number three, don't tell them they're a badass, show them that they're a badass. And this is where we create scenarios where it is very, very obvious that they are capable of doing way more than they perceive. And one of the most potent ways to do that is with an AMRAP set. So AMRAP, for those that may not be familiar, is as many reps or rounds, but as many reps as possible. And this is a very, very helpful tool to use when trying to assess how strong someone is. So you can get an estimate of their 1 rep max using an AMRAP set. This is something that the CMFA, the clinical manager of the fitness athlete crew, will speak to as well. Something we use a lot in MMOA. It's a great tool because you can calculate their 1RM, but you also put them in a scenario where they learn, oh my gosh, I lifted that a lot more times than what I thought I was able to. So what this looks like, we'll just kind of talk through a scenario. We'll stick with the deadlift. That's pretty simple activity there. Let's say we're going to do 5 sets of 5 reps of the deadlift, right? And you're introducing this activity. It may be day 1, it may be day 2, day 3, whatever. Relatively early on in the process, more than likely. And that person still has a lot of fear avoidance behaviors on board. They are scared to death of that 25-pound dumbbell or kettlebell or whatever, even though you know they can do that. So you're going to start at 10. All right. 10 pounds, 5 reps. Good job, Betty. She's obviously doing this without any issues whatsoever. Technique's looking great, relatively easy. Betty, what do you think about going up to the 15-pounder? Does that sound okay? We could do the 12 and a half as well, but the 15 from my end, everything looked awesome. You got the green light from my angle. She's like, yeah, let's do that 15-pounder. Cool. Let's do another set of 5. A little bit more challenging, but nothing too crazy. All right, let's do the third set at 15. Sweet. All right, another set of 5 at 15 pounds. Betty, you're absolutely crushing this. I'm very confident that you could do the 20-pounder without any issues whatsoever. What do you think? Okay, yeah, that sounds like a great idea, Dustin. So the fourth set, we'll do the 20-pounder. Awesome. She's doing great. Heart rate's starting to go up a little bit, but we're trying to give her ample rest, maybe 1-2 minutes in between these sets. And then we get to the 5th set. You say, hey, Betty, 25 pounds, I think you can definitely do this. You are doing really, really well. This is looking really great from my end. I think you can definitely do the 25-pounder. And she may start to push back a little bit. I'm good, Dustin. I'm going to stick with the 20-pounder. This is where probably 7 years ago, I would have been like, Betty, come on, let's do this 25-pounder. You got this, whatever. Nowadays, I'm going to say, all right, cool. Let's stick with the 20-pounder. All along, you're trying to educate her as well that we're trying to get to a point where you can only do about 5 reps or so, maybe 1 or 2 more reps, but this should be relatively heavy to where you can't do many more reps beyond 5. If I say that, I know because a 5-rep max is equivalent of 87% of someone's 1RM. We're staying in a pretty high percentage of their 1RM, so we're going to get some strength gains. A little bit hard to do initially, right? But this is what we're kind of thinking. So I'm like, all right, Betty, 20 pounds. I want you to do as many reps as you can on that last set. So that last set of that five sets of 5, that 5th set is going to be an AMRAP set. I basically open up the door to her to absolutely destroy her perceptions of herself. And so Betty starts deadlifting. 1 rep, 2 rep, 3 rep, 4 rep, 5 rep. She pauses at the top and she thinks, oh my gosh, I think I can do more. Yeah, Betty, go for it. 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, all the way up to 21 reps. This is a common scenario, especially in Stronger Life. Saw this in home health as well. And in that moment, when she gets done with that 21st rep, and she probably could have kept going, but she was just getting bored at that point, she realizes, holy crap, I am so much stronger than what I perceived. I just did that 20-pound, and in her mind, 20 pounds is a big deal. She doesn't lift a lot of 20-pound things per se, even though that purse is 25. But that weight, that dumbbell, that kettlebell that's relatively intimidating, she lifted that 21 times. Hell yeah, Betty. we're starting to unleash the beast. And that's just the first time that we do that activity. Now, think about what happens when you're consistently providing those opportunities, those AMRAP sets throughout your course of care over weeks and maybe months, of how that shapes that person's perception of themselves and what they're capable of doing. And at the beginning, they started off thinking, oh, 25 pounds, no way I can lift that off the ground, to where you can easily, with Betty, get her confident in lifting 100 pounds off the ground. And think about what that does from her perceptions of herself and the decisions that she's going to make after that, of what she thinks that she can do, the decisions that she's going to make. She is going to be able to attack life and be confident that she's going to be able to handle a lot of what life throws at her. She has unleashed the beast and discovered her inner badass. And you all have the opportunity to do that with your folks. Some of you have more time than others, right? I'm in the context of fitness right now. So I'm seeing folks 4 or 5 times a week, years on end. I've got a lot of time to really challenge people's perceptions. Some of you all have one visit, right? So we want to think about this. So we all have a role to play to unleashing someone's inner badass. Some of us may have more time than others, but we all have a role to play here. So to recap, number one, meet them where they're at. We want to maintain or build and maintain that trust. So a lot of times that looks like intentional underdosage when we're talking about this particular population. Number two, we want them to maintain autonomy, and we want them to maintain the decision-making power within this process. So we give them options that are going to lead them to the path that we're wanting to head. And then number three, don't tell them they're a badass, show them that they're a badass. And AMRAP sets are going to be a very potent way to do that. Awesome. I'd love to hear your all's thoughts. If you have anything else to add to the conversation, head over to Instagram, drop a comment, or YouTube. We'd love to engage with you all as well. Podcasters, thank you for listening. Also, hop on social media. Give us your thoughts. Y'all have a lovely, lovely Wednesday, and I will talk to y'all soon. See ya.